Hi, my name is Elizabeth Newens, and I'd like to welcome you to the Quitman Small Business Relief Program. I'm with the Quitman Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Executive Director. And before we begin, I would like to thank our co-hosts for this event, Instant Offices of Texas, Wood County National Bank, and this video was underwritten by the Wood County Economic Development Commission. And I'd also like to thank County Roads Film Company for producing and filming this webinar for us. It will be available live, and then also it will be available on our website, on our Facebook page, and on the YouTube channel. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Jolene Wallace. She is the managing member at Instant Offices of Texas, and she is going to walk you through the Small Business Association Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Thank you very much.
Hi, welcome to the webinar. What we're going to do today is teach you how to apply for this disaster loan assistance program and put $10,000 in your pocket. If you, as a small business, you know right now is very crucial, and in order for us to all survive, we need that extra influx of cash. So this is a way to do it. It is the most recent information I have from the SBA, so I'll be passing it on. We'll go step by step. If for some reason you don't have all the information that you need in order to complete the application, don't let that stop you from listening to the webinar, because you can come back and it'll be recorded and you can watch it and then get your information in. The documents you're going to need to start with would be your tax ID number first and how your entity is formed. So without any delay, we're going to go ahead and begin and start the application. The first step we have here is this is what your first page will look like. The web address is up here in the corner. So if you're not on that page or that web address yet, we'll give you just a few seconds to click onto that. You can walk through the process with us if you have your information. If for some reason you do not have all of it, then it will not let you keep going on your page, but it will on ours. We're going to use some bogus information so that my personal tax ID numbers are not on the screen, but we do have some that we're going to use just for the application process, and then we just will not submit it so that we don't send in a wrong application. So let's get started. The first page will tell you it's a streamlined process, and it tells you exactly what you're going to need in order to apply for what is known as the EIDL loan. That's the short version that the SBA will call it. And with that, this is the streamlined version. So you'll go down, and where it says eligible entity verification, that's our first question on here. And you have multiple choices here. One is, of course, if you are a business with not more than 500 employees, which would cover most of us here in Quitman. And then the next one, so you would click that one if that is you. Or there's, if you're an individual who operates as a sole proprietorship without any employees, or as an independent, with or without employees, or as an independent contractor. I think this is another category that's typical for the Quitman area. So either one of those, you tell us, are you a formed LLC, C Corp, whatever you might be. So you are a business then, with not more than 500 employees, you would click the first box. If you are not a bigger company, then you are, or you are a LLC and you are the only member of your LLC, then you are a sole proprietor. Or if you are a DBA, which means you're using your name, doing business under another name. So you need to pick what category you are. Of these two are the main ones. I don't think we have anybody that's a co-op with not more than 500. But anyway, go down the list here. There's another one here that employee stock ownership plan. I don't think anybody's an ESOP, but if you are, that would be the category. So you need to pick which ones you fall into, reading each one, and then make your choice. And in this case, for the purpose of the webinar, we are going to do it as number one, which is an applicant is a business with not more than 500 employees. Then you're going to go down to the second part, and it says review and check all of the following. The first question they're asking you is the applicant engaged in any illegal activity? Now, it's asking you if you are. So if you are, if the applicant, is not engaged in any illegal activity. So you want to click that. If you are engaged in any illegal activity, you can stop right now. You're not going to be able to do it. No principal of the applicant with a 50% or greater ownership in any kind of delinquent child support. So if you don't owe any child support or delinquent child support, then you would click that one. If you do have delinquent child support of more than 60 days, then you will not be able to click that, and we need to stop right now. You will not be able to apply. Okay, the applicant is not an agricultural enterprise. So you're not a farm, and this is the person applying. So if you are applying as your business and your business is a farm, then you'll need to stop here also. So if you're not a farm, then you would click that one. Applicant does not present live performances, and you can read that all the way through there. So you want to make sure you are not doing this as well. If you are not, then you would click it. The applicant does not derive more than a third of gross revenues from illegal gambling. So again, you want to be not, so you're clicking that. Applicant is not in the business of lobbying. So you click that if you are not. Applicant cannot be a state, local, or municipal government entity and cannot be a member of Congress. And that makes sense there. So it would be not. So all of these need to be checked that you are not any of those. And then as you notice, the continue button lights up. If any of these are not checked, it does not let you go further. So we would click those because we are not any of those, and then we go continue. The next step is where you would put your business name, the legal name that you're using to do business. If it's a DBA, you still put that legal name on there. So in this case, we're going to use Instant. We'll put Instant Offices of Texas there, and that's our trade name as well. And then here's where you would put if you're a sole proprietor, then you can use your Social Security number, whatever number you're using, whether it's an IRS assigned number or your personal social, however you're filing your taxes for your corporation, or that entity, that's what you need to put here. So it would be, we have a bogus number here, just so that we can keep going. Then the next thing it's looking for is what type of entity you are. So now we've completed the name of the business, the trade name if it's different, or if it's the same, that's fine too, but your trade name, then your tax ID number or Social Security number, however you file your taxes. And in this case, Instant Offices of Texas is an LLC, so we would push that way. Is the applicant a nonprofit? No, not on purpose. We are not a nonprofit. We are not a franchise. That's another thing. If you are a franchise, then you need to check with your CPA whether or not you can file this, because from what I'm being told by the SBA, it's a totally different avenue if you are a franchise. Your gross revenues for the last 12 months, this is before January 31st. So last year, what did you make last year? If you filed your taxes, then you have that information off of your tax returns. If you haven't filed taxes for 2019, that's okay, but you're going to need to have that total gross revenues. So it's just like the information you would have to give to a bookkeeper or a CPA in order to file your returns. Keep in mind this is gross revenue, not net. So we're just going to put a figure in here just to be able to go forward. We are not a retail business, but those of you that are, you would put the cost of your goods for any kind of retail work that you do. So whatever you sell, whatever your cost of goods that you sold in the last 12 months from January 31st, so it would be from January 1st to December 31st of 2019. What was that total sales? And what they're looking for mainly here is to see, as you'll find as we keep going, how much you've lost in revenue. So this is what you were last year, and that figure would go in there. included, you could. If you own, oh, I have to put 0, sorry. If you own rental property, then we need to know here what they're asking for is your lost rents due to the disaster. Not your rents, but your losses. So if you've had somebody move out, or maybe somebody can't pay you now, that's your losses. And you would take it from January 31st to date and put it in there. So in this case, we would say, you'd say $2,000 or whatever your number is. You would put that in there as your lost revenues. And it's only because of the disaster. So it's going to be whatever was lost as of January 31st, 2020 to date. Here they're looking for, if you're a nonprofit, your nonprofit cost of operation for the last 12 months would go in here. And then your combined annual operating expenses for the last 12 months. This is where you're going to need the information from your, again, what you would have been preparing for your taxes. But it's asking here, the combined annual operating expenses for the 12 months prior to the date of the disaster for all secular social services provided by a faith-based entity. So in this case, we are not a faith-based entity. So our number would be 0 in that case. And then here is where they're looking for the secular, you know, what was it? Where did it come from? Again, this is only if you are a nonprofit. If you're just if you're a sole proprietor or a corporation of any form, you would not be filling these in unless your status says nonprofit. And then, of course, any compensation from other sources received as a result of the disaster. You can hear it, if you got anything from anybody else, then you would put that in there. We went ahead and accounted for the $300 from the QDC. You don't have to, it's up to you on how you want to do that, because usually if it's under a certain dollar figure, they don't care. But in our case, we go ahead and put the $300 in there. It's not going to hurt you. And then, of course, they're going to want a brief description of any other compensation sources. So, and if you've gotten money from any other grant program or any other, there's a lot of programs out there right now, a lot of different colleges and so forth are doing things for small business. So if you've got anything else other than what we show up here, then you can describe it and put it in there. Next is your primary business address. So in our case, it's 214 East Good Street, Quitman, Texas. Our county is not Texas, it would be Wood County. And then our zip code, and of course our business phone number. Sometimes when you do the pre-populated, it doesn't always accept phone numbers, I don't know why. If I'm going too fast, if you'll just text in and let us know that, then they can pick it up over here and we can make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind. In this case, for the alternative business phone number, I usually use my cell number. Which, since this is going YouTube, I don't think I'm going to do that. But you could put, if it was just us, you could put your cell number there or something like that as a second phone number. And of course, if you have a fax number, I was going to want something. Since I already started putting the number, it was looking for the number. So I just used the second phone number. Then, of course, your business email. And then the date your business was established. This is the day, if you're incorporated, it would be the date that you were incorporated. If it is the day you did your DBA certificate, that's the day you're looking for. What day did you go into operation? And just for the sake of this application, we're going to go ahead and put in a date. And then this is real important. How long have you managed it? If you bought this business from somebody else, then it may have been formed, in this case, January of 2019, but maybe you just took over the ownership in the last 6 months. They would need to know that date. If it's the same date, because you were the one that started the company, then you would put that same date in there. Okay? Business activity, it has a pull down. Try to find one that's as close as you can to what you're doing. In this case, Instant Offices falls under the real estate category, and so that's our business activity. Here you have what they call the business part of it. Under real estate, they kind of give a pre-populated of what they think. If that doesn't describe what you're doing, then you can do none of the above. In this case, we would call ourselves property management. And then, of course, how many employees did you have as of January 31st? So this is a key date. Everything is on this application keeps going back to that on this page because you cannot go out and form a corporation after the disaster was declared and then apply for this money. And that's what they're watching for. They will not give you the money if you were not in business prior to the disaster. So in this case, we have how many employees did we have, and we would have had 2. See how it populates so you know you've completed everything correctly because the next button lights up. And you can scan back and just kind of quickly make sure you've got everything in there, that you haven't missed anything. Everything's green, so we're good. The next thing it wants to know is who owns, in our case, who owns Instant Offices? Is it owned by a business entity, which in our case it is. It's partly owned by one of my other corporations, and then also partly owned by myself. So it's going to ask for that, so I have to tell them. So in your case, if it is not owned by another business entity, which probably most of you are not, especially if you're a DBA, then it would just be you as an individual. Or if you are even an LLC, but a sole proprietor LLC, which means you have no other members but yourself, then you would be the owner. So then you could come under an individual owner. At that point is where you put your name in. And then, of course, your title, which in this case I would be considered the manager, and then what percentage you own. And this is key. Again, if you are a sole proprietor, then you're going to have 100% here. If you are not a sole proprietor and you have a partner that's on there with you, then it's what percentage does whoever's applying for this money. So in the case of Instant Offices and now Jolene being one of the owners, what percentage does Jolene own? So that's what it's asking here. How much do I own of this corporation? So in that case, if you're just you and you have no partners, then it would be 100%. If you have partners, then what percentage do you own, meaning yourself personally, because that's the name we put in here, and then, of course, your partner would own the rest of it. So in this case, just for simplicity, we're going to say 100%. And then you have your email, and at this point, you can put your email address in there. Then it's going to ask you for your social. And I came up with this bogus number. I hope it doesn't belong to anybody out there. But it let me do it. So again, so we're not putting somebody's personal number on there. And then, of course, your date of birth, and it let me come up with something there. I just picked something random, but put in what your actual date of birth is. So now we've come in, you put the owner, you've got your full name, mobile phone number, the title, what percentage, your email, and now you've got your personal social if you are a sole proprietor or you own personally this company. And then, of course, your date of birth. And then a place of birth. You put that in. Next, it's going to ask you if you're a U.S. citizen, and notice how it populated now. So, I haven't tried the no, but let's try it, okay? You would click yes if you are a U.S. citizen, and then your residential address, of course, would be in there as well. So now we've gone through the third step here where we've got who owns it. If you have more than one owner of it, then it would populate a second spot if this didn't say 100%. If this said maybe only 20%, let me get even lower. Then as you go down, it's going to pick up on that, and you would have to add an additional owner. This percentage needs to equal 100. So either you're 100 or whatever percentage you are, plus the other partner, that equals 100. So if you have to add another partner because you are not 100% owner, then you would just click on add an additional owner, and you would fill the same information out on that other owner. Let me go to next. We're almost done. In the past year, has this business or a listed owner been convicted of a criminal offense committed during and in connection with a riot or civil disorder? And you can see in here what it's asking for here, and in our case, it's no. Is the applicant or any listed owner currently suspended or debarred from contracting with the federal government? That would be a no for us. We actually are a federal government contractor. I have a couple of corporations that do work just for the government. And then, are you presently subject to an indictment, criminal information, arraignment, or other means of which criminal charges are brought to any jurisdiction? So in our case, it's no. So they want to make sure you're not a criminal. They want to make sure you're not doing criminal activity. I mean, that's a plus for the government. At least they're asking. In this case, I do not put my name or company in here because I did not sit down with you and fill it out for you. Do not pay anybody to fill this form out for you. It doesn't cost anything. I mean, you can see how simple we're doing it here. Do not pay somebody. The SBA really frowns on that. In fact, you're not supposed to legally charge to fill this form out, but people are doing it. And I keep hearing that, and it's frustrating, which is one reason I agreed to go ahead and take the time to do this, because I don't want anybody to pay for something that's this simple that we can help them through. And then you're just saying you give permission. If you hired somebody, then you gave them permission to do it. Let's say your partner maybe filled it out and you didn't, you weren't with them. They don't have to do this because the partner information is already collected. So unless you've paid, sometimes there's a few, I haven't found any, but I'm hearing there's a few nonprofits out there that are filling them out or helping other people fill them out. But anyway, some of them are charging a fee, and that's no reason to do that. Next, you're going to check. This is the big check. This is where you get the check. I would like to be considered for an advance. This is a $10,000 advance that comes from this EIDL loan application that we have just done. You will get $10,000 from the government that is not paid back. That $10,000 is a grant. Now, you'll need to check with whoever does your books whether or not you're taxed on that. Grants, typically, in my experience of doing it for about 40 years now, I have never been taxed on a grant. So that's just how it works. But you want to check on this because it keeps evolving whether or not you'll be taxed. As I know of, as of today, because it could change tomorrow, as of today, there is no tax on the $10,000. But that could change. But from what I'm hearing so far, no tax. Here's where you enter your bank, and of course, if you do not have a bank and you've received your $300 from the QDC over here, the Quitman Development Corporation, if you take that $300 to Wood County National Bank here in Quitman, deposit that check in there and open your account, deposit it in there, they will match that $300. Then you have your account information, then you would put in here the Wood County National Bank, and the only reason they are co-hosting this with us, they were one of the only banks here in Quitman when we called everybody that responded. Not only did they respond, Morgan came up here and we sat down and talked about how Wood County could help Quitman, and they stepped up. So we want to thank them for that, but it is a way for you to make another $300 on your QDC check. So when you get that $300, and you can still apply up until April the 10th. So when you get that check from the QDC, if you take it to Wood County National Bank, along with the flyer, or at least go and see Morgan and tell them you're coming and you're depositing it for the matching funds, then they will make sure that that match takes place. And we all talked about it is after 30 days of the account being open and in good standing, you'll get 150 of it. Then the next 30 days, or at the end of 60 days, you'll get another 150. So it'll be split out. By then you'll have your 10,000. And again, you would have put that banking information right here, your account number, your routing number. And that's where you would get that 10,000 would then be deposited into your new account. So not only will you be putting in 300, QDC gave you, Wood County National is going to give you another 300, and then you'll get an advance off your idle loan of $10,000, and it will go into that account as well. So that's a lot of money that will help us as small businesses. And again, it's just another avenue we're trying to share with you to help you stretch that dollar even further.
So Jolene, if you already have a bank account established, you can
Yes.
enter it, right?
If you already have an account with Wood County Bank, then you can go ahead and take the flyer or go to Morgan and let him know, hey, I'm putting in my QDC money, I'm bringing it to your bank, I'm depositing it in, you can see the check or however he wants to prove it, but you can show him I'm putting the money in here and I already have an account. He will still match the funds. In fact, they were talking about matching them immediately because you're already an established customer. So definitely tell him when you go in to deposit the QDC money, show him the check or the flyer and that you have put your money in, and then they will make the choice at that point whether they'll give you, as an established customer, the additional 300 right then, or whether they'll split it out over a 60-day period. And then again, this is the process, and we're not going to submit this one because the information isn't right, but it is as far as how to walk through the steps. But you would go ahead and submit it. When you submit it, you will get a number. At the end of all of this, we would push, we would get the number. I don't know if it'll let me do it. Well, I don't want to submit. So when you're done, it'll pop up, and there'll be a number on there to let you see that is your application number. It's also almost telling you what number you are in the lineup. Don't freak out, it's already in the 3 millions. That doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. They can process about 500,000 of these, they're telling us, in very short periods of time. So it shouldn't take long to get your 10,000. But you do want to make sure that you've completed this right. If it pops up that number for you, save that page. You want to print it. Now I print the whole application just so I know what I've submitted in case there's any questions. And then when it pops up and gives you your number, you're going to have that with you as well. If you have questions later on, like maybe you fill this out and 30 days goes by and you don't hear anything, then you would call the SBA. Be prepared to be on wait for 1 to 3 hours, but you would call them and give them that number and they can tell you the status. So you've got to have that application number. If you don't get a number when you're done with all of this, then something went wrong. Either the information wasn't complete, it should tell you why. I've not gotten any that have not gone through. But if you get one that doesn't, then you want to go back and look at your application. If it still doesn't go through, it's possible that the system may have crashed temporarily and you may have to go back and put the information in again just because it got overloaded. Most of the time when I do my applications, it's real early in the morning or it's after 6 in the evening, and I haven't had any trouble. So keep that in mind, but you need that number because that's going to tag you. And now with this bank account information, that'll set the money will be a direct deposit. The money does not come from your bank. So the bank is not going to give you the 10,000. It's coming from the SBA, and the SBA is the one that's going to make that direct deposit into your account. So you have to have that number in case something happens and you don't get anything at all. And I haven't heard of anybody having that happen. But if it does, then that's where you would have the number to call the SBA and say, hey, what happened? It's been 30 days, 60 days, and I haven't seen anything. I did mine on March the 21st, and I used the long form first because that's all that was out there. and then I went in and did this streamline. And when I did the streamline, it actually pre-populated. So that helped me know they did get my original application. And I've gotten 3 emails from them since, so I know it's in process. So that was just March 21st. So that kind of helps a little bit there. I don't have all the answers, but when I do get the answers, it's straight from the SBA. I don't like to get it from third parties because it does change a lot. And if you're getting it straight from the SBA, then you know it's what's going on today. They are trying to make this more streamlined. I think this application that we've got now is excellent. It's simpler, but you do have to know your accounting. You got to know where your business is at. How much did I make last year? How much am I losing? If you've got a history and you were in business last year at this time, and you know what you're losing right now, because you can look at last year's records and say, hey, last March, for example, I made $20,000 that month. This month I've not made anything, or I've made $2,000 or whatever. That's the loss that they're talking about, and that's what they're trying to help you recoup in this EIDL loan. The $10,000 is not a loan, but it is an advance off of the EIDL loan. So let's say you were approved for $100,000 on the EIDL loan, and you've already gotten your $10,000. Then your final offer from the SBA will be for $90,000. $90,000 is the remaining balance. $10,000 of your advance comes to the $100,000 that they would have appointed to you. You will get a phone call from somebody. I was involved when they had Katrina as far as these loan applications. So you will get a body calling you to verify the information as it gets closer and closer to closing on the EIDL loan. So the big loan, which can go up to $2 million. So watch your mailbox, make sure that the email that you're using is a good email that you can receive on, and check it often so that if they ask a question, you can be on top of it right away and get those answered and keep that application moving. So that's the main thing. If you have questions, we do have it set up so you could send them in. If you have any other questions beyond that, feel free to email us on that link that we have here.
Jolene, can you, real quick, if someone has already submitted this application and didn't get a number, what would you suggest?
Then you need to reapply. If you did not get a number, they don't have you in the system. Either the system crashed while you were doing it, or something was wrong in the application, and you have to have that number, because just like they have to have our social, that number tracks your application. So if you did it and you did not get a number on this streamline process, now the longer loan that application they first had out, it did not give us a number, but it's still tracked it by our social. But this is the streamline. Even if you say, hey, this looks like what I've already done, which it was in my case, I went ahead and did it anyway, and it just pre-populated. So now my EIDL loan application for the up to $2 million and my $10,000 advance that I'm asking for have now merged together. So it's not going to hurt, but if you did not get a number for this streamline process, which is where it goes directly into your bank account, then you need to go back online and fill it out again. Make sure you use the same information as far as who's the owners, social security numbers, and your revenues. So fill it out again until you get that number. And once you get that number, then that's what's going to follow you all the way through the application process.
And then also, just real quick, could you, a little bit of confusion on what's the difference between this program and the PPP and all of the other?
There's a lot of them out there, and because the SBA had 15 days to actually make up the guidelines, some things were trickling out last week that are not true today, and so this is just the EIDL loan. It is not your PPP, which is your paycheck, if you wanted to get the revenue for your paychecks. That is not what this loan is. This is separate, or grant, but that's not what this is. This is separate from the PPP loan. It's separate from the IRS funds that are going to be distributed as well. Again, if you're an individual from the IRS, it was like $1,200 or whatever. That is separate. You don't even have to apply for that money. That's the IRS looking at your tax returns from 2018 and 2019. So that is not what this is. This is just the EIDL loan. It's not the PPP loan. It's not the IRS loan. It's not the $25,000, which is another small business loan out there that the SBA has. It's just your EIDL loan, and for the advance of the $10,000 that you do not have to pay back. So whatever you do, if you're saying, well, I don't need a loan, I don't want a loan, you still need to apply for the EIDL loan and get your $10,000 advance that you do not have to pay back. So when they call you 2 months from now, or whatever it's going to be, 3 weeks from now, and say, hey, we've approved you for the EIDL loan for $200,000, you don't have to take it, and you still get to keep the $10,000. So unless you don't need $10,000, then you don't have to do any of this. But do it, get your $10,000. It's not paid back. It would be deducted if you took the bigger loan, the actual EIDL loan. They will deduct the $10,000 from that. So, but if you don't ever take the bigger loan, and you don't have to, you still get the $10,000, and it is a grant. So don't walk away from those funds.
What are the terms for the loan?
If you go for the bigger EIDL loan, which, like I said, if they call you and say, hey, you qualified for $200,000, currently the interest rate is 3.75, and it's a 30-year amortization. So that's a nice interest rate. It's just a little bit over what prime was last week, so I don't know if that's still prime today, but I think prime was 3.25. So this is 3.75, and then it's amortized out over 30 years. So that is a fixed rate. It's not a balloon. It doesn't go up later. It is a solid fixed rate, which is something that some of the businesses may want to think about. If you've got debt there that you may want to refinance, you might look into that when they call you to say you're approved for so much. That's when you discuss with them, hey, I've got this mortgage over here. Can I roll it into this loan and get a better rate and better terms? So that's something you can ask them then. At one point, they were saying that the EIDL loan was non-collateralized. I think that's something that they're now weighing whether they're going to collateralize it or not. So that could change. But for right now, go ahead and apply for it. You can always tell them, hey, I don't want to do it after all. But you still get the $10,000. They're not going to come back and try and take that $10,000 from you.
If you want to read out the email address, that's on your bottom. If you have questions.
If you have any questions, you can send it to qsbrp@instantofficesoftexas.com. And if you saw the flyer that was on the screen, and we can probably put that back up here now, the email address is at the bottom. And that's if you have any questions, about the application process. Again, if you're out there and you're not sure of something, I encourage you to go to the SBA site and not, somebody's opinion. Because I've seen several already out there that the information has changed. So you want to keep up with what it is. But for right now, for today, this is a simple application, and it gets you your $10,000. Is there any other questions? Thank you for joining us. We want to thank again, of course, Instant Offices of Texas here at 214 East Good Street in Quitman. We also want to thank Wood County National Bank, County Road Film Company, and of course, Wood County Economic Development is our underwriter for this. Thank you.